I stared at the glow of the laptop screen until my eyes felt dry. That kind of dry where you blink and they sting a little. Maybe it was the lack of sleep. Maybe it was the truth settling in. Either way, the numbers didn't lie. They never do. Before I continue, like this video and subscribe to this channel to get more interesting stories like this. Grandma was breathing softly in her recliner, her wool blanket rising and falling like a slow tide. I glanced over at her, and for a second, I felt that old instinct to protect her before anything else. Funny how that instinct survived years of being taken advantage of, years of being the go-to fixer for everyone except myself. I turned back to the transactions. More withdrawals. More digital fingerprints from the people who shared my last name. My family used to feel like a backbone. Now they felt like a leak in the ceiling that someone kept pretending wasn't there, even as the water dripped on their head. By the time the sun started creeping through the blinds, I had a neat little list typed out. Names, dates, amounts, places they'd gone while telling me they were struggling. A pattern of taking that looked almost rehearsed. I rubbed my eyes with the heels of my palms and leaned back. The house smelled like old wood and lavender tea. Grandma's house always smelled like that, even back when I was a kid who couldn't reach the top shelf without a stool. So many Christmases here. So many quiet mornings. I wondered if she felt betrayed too, or just tired of holding the family together like a seam about to split. She stirred, turning her head slightly. "You're still up," she murmured, voice soft and thin. "Yeah," I whispered, "just looking at some things." She tried to sit up straighter, but her joints argued back. I helped her adjust the blanket. "You didn't need to do all that digging," she said. "It'll only upset you." "It already did," I said, a little sharper than I meant to. I sighed. "I just need to understand how far it went." She looked at my face for a long moment, the way grandmothers do, like she was reading a diary without touching it. "Your mother, she wasn't always like this." I knew what she was doing, trying to soften the blow, trying to remind me that people don't wake up one day and decide to drain their own mother's pension. But to be honest, I wasn't in the mood for revisionist history. Not today. "Maybe not," I said, "but she is now." Grandma closed her eyes. I could tell the conversation tired her. I let her rest and turned back to the screen. Every number I saw steadied me in a way that felt strange. It wasn't rage, not the kind that makes you throw things. It was more like resolution settling in my chest. I wasn't plotting anything impulsive. That wasn't my style. I grew up watching people in my family ruin everything by doing the first thing their anger told them to do. I'd learned to take the slower road, the one where you think, and wait, and plan. Maybe that's why they thought they could get away with this. Around noon, I warmed up some soup for Grandma. She ate half of it while watching me with this worried little crease on her forehead. "You're awfully quiet," she said. "I'm fine." "You're lying." I shrugged and took a sip of my own bowl. It tasted like something bland you make when you're trying not to think too hard. After lunch, I told her I needed to run an errand. She didn't ask where, she didn't need to. Grandma has always known when to let people keep their thoughts. The air outside was colder than I expected, the kind that nips your ears and makes your breath look like smoke. I pulled my coat tighter and started walking. I didn't really have a destination at first. Sometimes you just need to move so your thoughts can settle out. Our neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet you get in older streets where houses look like they've been standing long enough to see several versions of the same family move in and out. Kids were playing down the block, Someone was raking leaves. A dog barked 3 houses away. Ordinary things that didn't match the storm going on in my head. Somewhere around the pharmacy, my phone buzzed. A text from my sister Maya. Heard you're back. Hope Christmas was okay. We're coming by next week. I stared at the screen. A simple message. Light. Casual. Like she hadn't taken thousands from Grandma. Like she hadn't boarded a cruise ship funded by money I'd saved for months. I slipped the phone into my pocket and kept walking. My feet eventually led me to the small park near the school I used to attend. There was a wooden bench under a big ash tree. I sat there and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. That's when the memory hit me. I was maybe 12 or 13. We'd been playing soccer out here. It had rained the night before, so the field was muddy. I remember slipping, falling flat on my back. My mother was supposed to come watch, but she never showed. She said later she was too busy. I hadn't thought much of it then. Kids don't analyze disappointments, they just absorb them. But now, sitting on that old bench, I saw it differently. It wasn't one thing, it was a lifetime of little cracks that eventually let bigger things through. I think the moment you finally accept that your family will never be what you hoped, it's a mix of grief and something colder that feels suspiciously like freedom. I sat there for a while, letting the cold air clear my head. Then I pulled out my phone again, opened my banking app, and stared at the same negative balance I'd seen at Christmas. $8,500. Just gone. Spent on fancy meals and matching cruise jackets and God knows what else. I probably could have forgiven them if it happened once. Maybe. But this wasn't once. This was a pattern. I guess this was the part where some people would say I should have confronted them directly. Called them. Demanded answers. But to be honest, I felt like answers were the last thing I wanted. Answers open doors. I was closing mine. Instead, I stood up, took one slow breath, and headed home. When I walked back inside, Grandma was asleep again. Her breathing was peaceful, but I didn't miss how fragile she looked. It hit me in a sudden, almost physical way that she was depending on me. Not them. Me. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and wrote a single sentence at the top of a new document. If they want to treat me like a resource, they can experience what happens when it stops flowing. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't angry. It was just true. Then I started typing a plan. It felt strange at first, almost like doing homework, but the more I wrote, the clearer everything became. I wasn't planning anything destructive. That wasn't the point. I wanted something cleaner, something that made them feel the absence they'd taken for granted. Step by step, I wrote down everything I needed to do. Freeze joint accounts. Redirect Grandma's pension to a new bank. Notify credit bureaus. Secure medical access codes. Change the door locks. The moment my fingers hovered over that last line, I hesitated. It felt severe, permanent. But so was stealing from your own grandmother. I think people forget that betrayal doesn't always come with screaming. Sometimes it comes with a quiet moment where you decide you're simply done. That night, while Grandma slept peacefully down the hall, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, the Christmas lights still blinking lazily behind me. I could almost imagine the house listening as I worked through each step. Not angry, not emotional, just focused. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I stopped typing, closed the laptop slowly, and leaned back in my chair. My shoulders were tight, but my mind felt clearer than it had in years. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for my family to do better. I was preparing for what would happen when they finally realized the consequences of treating me like a safety net with no end. And in that quiet moment, under the soft glow of Christmas lights, I felt something almost unsettling. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. What they didn't know was that the storm they created had already started turning, and it wasn't heading toward destruction. It was heading toward balance. And I wasn't done yet. I sat there for a while, letting the wind tug at the sleeves of my coat. You know that feeling when your mind suddenly quiets down right before something shifts? That's what it felt like. Not peace exactly. More like clarity stretching its arms. After maybe 20 minutes, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Liam. "Hey man, got your message? Did you call? I'm boarding in a bit. Bad Wi-Fi. Talk later." Boarding. The word hit me like a tap on the shoulder. Not the cruise ship. A flight. Probably some excursion or island hop. They weren't just on vacation. They were expanding the vacation. I almost laughed. A short, humorless breath. They were really doing it. No guilt, no hesitation, full speed ahead. That was the moment, honestly. The moment where the last little thread inside me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic. Just done. I stood up, brushed off my coat, and headed home with this slow-building sense of direction. Revenge, if you can call it that, isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's a quiet decision you make while walking past a playground. Sometimes it's a whisper to yourself that says, enough. The sun was high by the time I got back. Grandma was in the living room knitting something in a soft blue yarn. She looked up with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Feel better?" she asked gently. "Clearer," I said. "Could use some tea, though." She nodded. "Kettle's already warm." I had to smile at that. Grandma seemed to sense storms before they form. While the water heated, I opened my notebook. A plain, cheap spiral one I used for grocery lists and budgeting. I flipped to a clean page and wrote one word at the top. Plan. It felt almost funny how official it looked. I didn't write anything else for a long minute. The pen hovered above the page. Then slowly, deliberately, I started jotting things down. Not ideas for payback, not anything dangerous or dramatic. Just facts, truths, patterns, everything they'd done to Grandma, everything they'd taken, and the small, simple ways they'd dismissed me over the years. Father's gambling debts that became mine, Maya's emergencies that never ended, Liam calling me the dependable one, like it was a compliment, while draining every savings I built. Seeing it all in one place made something settle in my stomach. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't even going to chase after the money they'd stolen. No. I was going to unravel the comfort they believed they had in me. I was going to show them what life looked like without their safety net. And I knew exactly where to start. After tea, I asked Grandma to sit with me. She lowered herself onto the couch, her fingers still clutching the blue yarn. "What is it, sweetheart?" I hesitated. It's hard to tell someone you're about to shake up the family they still love. "I want to help you fix things," I said quietly. "But I need to know everything first. Not just the money, the details. When things started. Who said what?" She looked at me with this tired, almost relieved expression. "I was hoping you'd ask." So we talked. Slowly, carefully, like peeling back old wallpaper to see what's underneath. She told me about the small withdrawals that started months ago. She thought they were mistakes. Then the larger ones that came after. She thought they were temporary. She told me about my mother promising to replace everything soon, and how soon never came. Somewhere in the middle, Grandma's voice cracked. I didn't want you to worry. You already carry so much. I felt something tighten in my chest at that. You shouldn't have been carrying this alone. She blinked away tears. I think I knew they were using you too. I just didn't know how to stop it. We sat there for a long moment in the quiet. There's a certain weight that comes with realizing you're the only one steady enough to protect the person who once protected you. The roles reverse quietly, almost without permission. I'm not going to do anything reckless, I told her. But I am going to fix this. She nodded slowly. Whatever you choose, just don't lose yourself in it. I didn't answer, mostly because I wasn't sure what losing myself meant anymore. Maybe I'd already been lost for years, buried under responsibility that was never supposed to be mine. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, again. The same place where I'd found that note. Its message still burned into my memory like a bad tattoo. We used your $8,500 for the family cruise. Take care of Grandma. I traced the edge of the torn paper with my finger and felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not sadness, something steadier. Maybe conviction. I took out my phone and opened the family group chat. The last message was a blurry photo of palm trees and cocktails. They looked happy, relaxed, like people who had no idea their world was beginning to tilt. I think, maybe, that was the moment I realized I didn't owe them kindness anymore. I typed a message, simple and careful. Update: Grandma's safe with me. Her accounts are secure. Handle your own expenses from now on. I hovered over the send button, then tapped it. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was the first pull of a thread I'd been holding on to for too long. The read receipts popped up, one by one. Maya was the first to reply. What do you mean, secure? Did something happen? Then Liam. Dude, chill, we'll talk when we're back. Stop being weird. Then my mother. We'll discuss this as a family when the trip is over. Don't do anything stupid. I put the phone face down on the table. My lips twitched, not a smile exactly, but something close to satisfaction. They had no idea this was only the beginning. Grandma moved softly behind me and touched my shoulder. Come to bed, she said. You need sleep. I nodded and stood, but before I turned off the light, I looked back at the kitchen table. The note, the receipts, the empty chairs. All of it waiting, like actors on a stage before the curtain rises. The funny thing about endings is that they rarely arrive with fireworks. Mine came on an ordinary afternoon, months after the cruise, when life had settled into something that actually felt like mine. I was fixing a loose cabinet hinge in Grandma's kitchen when my phone buzzed with a message from Maya. A long one. Apologies, explanations, promises to do better. The kind of message people send when the fallout finally reaches them. Liam sent something similar 2 days later. My father never wrote, though I didn't expect him to. I read every word, let them sit there for a moment, then set the phone aside. Not out of anger, just clarity. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped needing their validation. I'd stopped trying to fix what refused to be fixed. The real revenge, if you want to call it that, wasn't dramatic. It was choosing myself for once. It was helping Grandma restructure her finances. It was watching her smile again, without that tightness in her eyes. It was waking up each morning with a kind of quiet peace I hadn't felt in years. I didn't cut them off completely. I simply stepped out of the role I'd been trapped in. No more emergency loans. No more being the safety net. No more carrying everyone else's weight. And strangely, That boundary did more than any angry confrontation ever could. It forced them to stand on their own feet, to face the consequences they used to hand off to me. One evening, while Grandma and I shared tea on the porch, she squeezed my hand and said, "You did right, sweetheart." I believed her. When I look back now, that torn Christmas note feels like the end of one life and the quiet start of another. A line drawn, a door finally closed. I didn't get my money back, but I got something better: my freedom, my peace, and the steady knowledge that the version of me they relied on no longer exists. The man who walked away from that kitchen table is someone they can't use anymore. Someone I'm finally proud to be. And honestly, that's enough.